hands properly. Dry with a clean towel. If there is no water, do the same washing motions with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer containing at least 70% alcohol.
Wash your hands. Wash them right. This message brought to you courtesy the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hello and welcome back to the studios of the National Television Network, the Government Information Service. I am Lucia Joseph, and as we promised you earlier this morning, we are back with the president of the St. Lucia Bankers Association, Ms. Carol Mangal. And of course, I know it is a segment that many have been waiting for, because we want to be able to get a little bit more detailed, and perhaps your questions as well that you may have for Ms. Mangal. You can send that, as always, on our Facebook platform. I will be more than happy to pose those questions to her. Ms. Mangal, thank you so much. I know, like as I said in the meeting yesterday, the update yesterday, once the idea of the moratorium came about, the Facebook platform just went off. It lit up. Persons, of course, are very encouraged by what you announced, and there have been questions about how all of it will be working, and so we really want to be able to be as detailed as possible to our viewers and listeners to help them figure out how they're going to manage in the next few weeks and months to come. So if you can just give us a little background as to the process that it took for the banks to be able to address the fallout of COVID-19.
Okay. Good morning, Lisa, and thanks for having me. So in terms of the process, okay, well, as you know, we are an association of banks. Our members include the commercial banks as well as the non-bank ECCB licensed financial institutions. That would include places like FITS, St. Lucia Development Bank, St. Lucia Mortgage Finance. Right now, our two new members are Capita Finance and Surgical Finance, but we also have, as part of our membership, financial investment and consultancy services, and that is in addition to the main commercial banks, Bank of St. Lucia, First National Bank, CIBC First Caribbean, RBC, Royal Bank, and Republic Bank. So as an association, we met to decide how can we prepare for what's coming, because as you would have heard many say, the economic impact is already here. There is nothing we can do to stop it. What will that mean for the man on the street? It may mean unemployment, and as announced yesterday by the Minister of Tourism, 15 hotels have already indicated they will close their doors. That means unemployment. Unemployment means inability to service one's debts. So mindful of that, we took the proactive step to start working as to how we can assist in those times. So a moratorium, so I want to say what a moratorium is. The word mora is the Latin word for delay. So a moratorium means you are delaying your payment. It does not mean, and I want us to get this clear, it does not mean you no longer have a debt with the bank. The bank is mindful that you will be unemployed or your financial circumstances will change, and as a result, you will not be able to meet your financial obligations as you would have done when you were in full-time employment. So we will delay the payment of your loan. So as I mentioned yesterday, banks are separate entities. You cannot tell a bank how to run itself to a large extent. So we have Canadian banks, we have local banks, we have regional banks. So all the banks have basically agreed a moratorium on loan payments. What is a moratorium? It means if you have your loan payment coming up and you are unable to make it, you contact your bank and you said, I am unable to make my payment. The bank may decide, depending on what they have agreed in the bank, if it's a 3 months moratorium they will give you, or if it's a 6 months. It appears the majority of banks are going with a 6-month moratorium. In fact, the Eastern Caribbean Bankers Association, of which we are a member, released a joint statement which you would have seen on Facebook with the ECCB, indicating banks will be given basically a 6 months, up to 6 months moratorium. So we don't know how long this thing will take. It may blow over in 6 months, maybe more, but for now it means that payments will be delayed. So you will not have to make your payment. However, as I said, some people may still be in a position to make their payment. So why delay it if you can make it? Because if you're in full-time employment and you've not been impacted and you feel you can make your payment, go right ahead. So you have the option to opt in or opt out.
Okay.
Hope this is...
Yeah, so just again to be clear, because there are some policies where you may be asked to pay the interest rates, but is the decision that there will be absolutely no payments whatsoever?
The moratorium, as far as I understand it, is moratorium on payments. So a payment includes two aspects. When a customer makes a loan payment, it covers principal and reduction. What I mean by that, a portion of your loan balance goes down, and the interest component is how the bank makes its money. So your payment covers those two aspects. So your balance reduces, but it doesn't reduce. So for instance, let me put it in layman's terms. If you owe us $1,000 and you make a payment of $100, you will not see your balance going to $900. That is because there is an interest component that the bank will charge. So for the moratorium, as far as I'm aware, it will be a moratorium on the installments. So the $100 repayment you had to make, it would be delayed for 6 months. So in the 6 months, you would not make your $600 payment, your monthly payment. What will happen when these blow over, or if, and that's why we say up to 6 months. So if the economy recovers in 4 months, then the bank will then revisit and say, okay, let us talk now. How will we now address the loan? Is it that you decide with them to extend the term of your loan, or is it that you want to keep your same term and you want to increase your payment to allow you to finish at the same time.
The time that you had. So if you had 2 years to pay, but then the 6 months taken out, so understood. So that is clear enough. Somebody online wants to know about people who have loans or mortgages with ascendancy firms.
Beg your pardon? I didn't understand that.
So maybe if Ingrid Calix can send the question again, and perhaps we can be a little bit more clear on exactly what it is that she wants to know on that. So we'll probably get back to that question. I wasn't clear on it either.
Okay.
Pramat?
I was just thinking, so you have two choices, two options. You can either increase, when things do improve, that you can either agree to pay a little bit more
To finish the same time.
or
ask for an extension of the time that you had to
so
pay.
it's these two.
Yes,
That's
yes,
two
you
options
have. But yes, but your bank will work with you on what options meets your needs.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yes.
All right.
Now, yesterday, somebody wants to know about the interest rates. A reduction on the interest rates would assist.
Okay. So as it is at this time, I don't think the interest rate is a factor. The reason I'm saying that is if we give you a reduction in interest rate, are you saying reduce my interest rate and I will pay you? We are looking at it that you may not be able to pay, so we are giving a moratorium. When this thing blows over, we will then determine, can we now negotiate interest rates? Interest rates to a large extent are determined by what happens on the global scale. So I do not think we should split hairs, as it were, at this point in time with interest rates. If the banks are giving a moratorium and you want to avail of it, avail of it. If you think you do not want to avail of it because you're in full-time employment and your sector has not been impacted, then all well and good, go ahead. Similar to what the Prime Minister said yesterday, even if Lucia is given some sort of assistance and you can pay your electricity bill, pay your electricity bill. So the option is the customer's own, but the important thing, it is available.
Okay, we have a number of questions about loans with the credit unions, but the credit unions do not form part of the association?
No, the credit unions come under a different body, so they would need to speak for themselves.
Okay, they also want to know about the credit unions in Advanced Caribbean and Axel Finance and so forth, but again,
I cannot speak on
these do
behalf
not
of these
form
people.
part of the
Perhaps we
Bankers
need to extend
Association
an invitation to the
to
credit
these
unions.
organizations.
Well, they
in
do
order for
have
them
their
to do
own
that.
governing body, so it would be them to come out and speak to their members, similar to what the banks are doing right now.
Okay. Signal that it's time for a break. We'll take that break. We'll be right back to continue the conversation with the president of the St. Lucia Bankers Association.
It's power bike time!
Hey, you need to cover your mouth. Don't you know about the coronavirus?
It's not a joke, it's a serious thing.
True that. What's coronavirus anyway?
The coronavirus is a group of viruses that causes the common cold. In more severe cases, it's like the flu.
Really? So are you saying that this is not a new virus?
No, it isn't new. It's a new strain. That's why some people say novel coronavirus. Yes, look at it like a family who just had a new baby.
I get it now. So how is it spread?
Through the air, like coughing and sneezing, touching objects, surfaces with the virus on it, touching your face, your eyes, your nose, your mouth before washing your hands with running water and soap.
Sounds like someone has the flu or the cold. Are the symptoms the same?
The symptoms are fever, coughing, sneezing, headaches, just like the flu. In some severe cases, you also have breathing difficulties and chest pains. Some persons also get pneumonia and kidney failure, and as you have heard the news, some people have died.
Wow. So how do I protect myself?
We have always been told to wash our hands with running water and soap. In the event there is no running water and soap, you use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer of at least 70% alcohol. Try your best to avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And in the event you need to sneeze and cough into a tissue, you throw the tissue into a bin. If you do not have tissue and you need to sneeze or cough, you do it into your elbow.
Yes, I heard that. So what medications can we take?
Well, as the virus is new, there is no medication or vaccine that you could really take to prevent it. What we really have to do is to practice infection control measures to protect ourselves.
Hey, people. I need to get a sweat. Let's get moving.
Let's do it, guys.
So, wait, how do I get more information?
Good, I have that number on lockpal. For further information, contact the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349, 468-5347, or 468-5342.
Let's defy limits! Woo! Come on!
5, 4.
Thank you so much for staying tuned, and we continue the conversation with the president of the St. Lucia Bankers Association, Ms. Mangal. During the break there, someone wants to know about FITS, but you did mention that FITS formed part of the thing. So again, these members will have their perhaps individual positions, but there is that general agreement that a moratorium will be applied. Yes? Okay, somebody also wants to know about credit cards, credit card payments, credit card debt. How does that apply?
Well, a credit card is a debt also. So if there is a moratorium on credit debt obligations, it will also apply to the credit cards.
And overdrafts?
Same thing.
Same thing.
They are debt obligations.
It's all debt. So to be clear, all debt obligations, moratorium on that. So need not worry. But it will be important to stress that you should contact your individual bank, your respective banks, in order for you to understand clearly what their position is on this. Yes?
Yes.
And don't just sit home and say, well, I heard they said that you don't have to pay any loans, so and you don't make contact with the bank.
Now in the contact, we do not need face-to-face contact at this point in time. What we've realized, and I think that has been a very good step by some of the hotels, they have actually written to the banks indicating these are the employees who they know salaries come to us, and they're letting us know that they will be closing, and as a result these people will be impacted.
Now that's a very good point, because you also want to know about people who have those standing orders. So every month, you know, your salary goes down to the bank, and you know that you have the loan to service, so that money is taken automatically. Somebody wants to know, is that still going to be the case because of the sort of agreement of that moratorium?
Okay, so you have to indicate whether you want to avail of the moratorium or not. So you should contact your bank. That is the main thing. So what you should do, email your bank, call your bank. Avoid going into the bank, because we are trying to practice social distancing as much as possible to curtail the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
Okay, so somebody here, okay, so let's, Ingrid, thank you so much for being clear. She was referring to the companies who buy or take over loans or mortgages from banks. How would they factor into that? I don't know if we have those firms operating in St. Lucia.
I'm not sure. I'm not aware of these existing in St. Lucia. Maybe in the more developed countries, but I'm not aware of any of those. What I know is, I mean, banks are competitive, so people switch mortgages. It's a competition, but as far as I'm aware, that does not exist in St. Lucia.
So will the banks still take the monthly service fee of customers' accounts?
Okay, so one of the things that banks were advised to look at is the fees. Should we still be charging fees? Again, the intention will be for banks to look at it and may make the individual decisions, but I'm kind of thinking that they may be leaning to waiving these as much as possible.
Okay. I think we did hear from bank concerning, at least for ATM charges.
Well, certain banks actually never charge ATM fees in the first place. So that is not something that the majority of banks charge for.
Okay.
because we are trying to get you to use those alternate channels. So why should we really charge you? So the majority of banks, as far as I'm aware, did not charge for you to use the ATM, because actually it's cheaper for us if you use the ATM instead of queuing up in the bank.
Okay. Someone again wants to know about the loan or credit card. If you are allowed to skip a few payments, will interest still calculate for that period? And how do you look into cuts, a possible interest rate cut? We did address that earlier, but maybe you could go over it again.
Okay, sure. So as I mentioned, interest rate is not the important thing at this time. And the other thing I want to mention, interest rates are actually very low right now. The spread between how much we pay, there is something called a minimum savings rate, which we have to pay on savings, which is 2%. So everybody who has a savings that generates interest, we pay 2%. Right now, banks are charging as low as 4% on loans. So the spread between the two is where the banks make their money. The banks have overheads, they have employees to pay, they have to make profits for the shareholders and so on. So actually, interest rates are really at an all-time low right now. So to say that they will reduce the interest rate at this point in time, I do not think that that is the focus right now. The focus is allowing you the moratorium, or allowing you to delay your payment until such time that you are in a position to start repayments. And again, we do not know how long this thing will last. There is so much uncertainty. So I think the banks have done the right thing, which is at this point, we will allow you to delay your payment for now.
Okay. Somebody wants to know about activating online banking. How can they get that done? I think you would need to contact the respective bank.
Well, for some banks, you can actually just go online to activate it once you have your account already. If you do not have an account, unfortunately, we are not opening accounts at this time. That's one of the things. But the majority of St. Lucians already have an account. The majority may not have a Visa debit card in hand. However, we are open to allow you to apply for that. And the other thing I want St. Lucians to know is that a lot of the banks have the cards holding, in the sense that they call people, come and collect your card is here. They don't make the time to collect it. Well, now, if there was ever a time, it's now. Please go into your bank and collect your card. Call first to ascertain that your card is there. Do not just go in and queue. Call your bank to ascertain, is my card ready? And when you come in to collect your card, you need to go with your ID so that they can verify you are the person collecting that card and you are the owner.
Let's assume there's a case of emergency, an individual, and they're desperately in need of financial assistance and would approach for a quick loan. Would that be possible?
Yes. So yesterday I mentioned that while we are not open for general lendings, we will be open to entertain short-term financing, which will include urgent financing, let's say medical reasons, depending on the nature. So we will be open for things of that nature. Because remember, banks have not closed. We have simply curtailed our opening hours, and so we are still open, but we will not be providing services that are not necessary at this time.
So trying to get a loan to say you want a new car, you want to go get other things, that is not going to happen.
Well, people need to be prudent. These are uncharted waters. What do you want a loan for a car when you do not know if you will be in a position to pay that car loan? And obviously banks will be look at this and look at the risk involved. Why increase debts that people may not be in a position to pay? So banks,
in the event that person is in a position, the bank wouldn't refuse.
Well, case by case, the bank wouldn't refuse, but you would have to show that you certainly can afford to pay, and you're not affected by this. Because for now, it's the tourism sector. We do not know what other sectors will be affected in the near future.
Okay. Okay, there's a question before we go to break. Yesterday you spoke about the ATMs and that being filled up regularly. Somebody wants to be reassured how regularly will they be filled up, and in terms of ensuring safety and so forth at the ATMs.
Okay, so that's a two-part question.
Yes.
Okay, so the first part, how regularly will it be filled up? The ATMs are very sophisticated machines. When they go in low on cash, they notify the people who deal with them. They actually get messages on their phones indicating that the custodians of the ATMs indicating that the ATM balances are going low. What I think a lot of banks have done, they've actually increased their cash limits. So you can increase the cash limit that you place in the ABM. So let us say your ATM was taken 200,000. You can say, because of the circumstances and the fact that we are advocating use of the ABM rather than coming into the bank, banks would have made preparations and put things in place to ensure that the ABMs are functioning and have cash. Obviously, there will be times when you come in the bank or in the ATM and it's done at the time. They may be refilling it at the time. But when the ABM is being replenished, as we call it in banking, it will be out for a short period, 15 minutes thereabout.
And the security aspect, because we uncertain times, and we know that uncertain times can bring out a certain element. So are we looking at increased security at ATMs?
Well, I am not aware of ATMs having a physical security, but when it comes to security in terms of technological security, it is in place. They have all the cameras in place. You may not see them, but they are there. I think the curfew that the Prime Minister implemented will assist with security matters. So I do not think security will be an issue, but that is me saying this now. We do not know what the future holds.
Okay. We'll take another break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. You can keep your questions coming. We're continuing the conversation on the other side.
Wash your hands. Wash them right.
With soap and lots of water. Get between fingers. Get under the nails. Go above the wrists. Do this for no less than 15 seconds. Rinse properly. Dry with a clean towel. If there is no water, do the same washing motions with an alcohol-based hand sanitizer containing at least 70% alcohol.
Wash your hands. Wash them right. This message brought to you courtesy the Bureau of Health Education of the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Welcome back to our conversation here with the President of the St. Lucia Bankers Association, Ms. Carol Mangal. Point of sale. So the question is the waiving of fees there. How would that work? Or has there been any consideration about waiving those fees at the point of sale charges?
Well, from what aspect? Is it from the vendor's aspect or the client purchasing? Which aspect? Because point of sale terminals for a lot of banks, as far as I'm aware, there are no fees to the customer who is making the purchase. Because it's an alternate channel that banks are advocating. And again, banks will look at that. So it's good that customers are asking this question. So if there are things we hadn't thought of, we will now take it on board as an association as well as individual banks.
Okay. And okay, so somebody spoke about increasing the amount that you can withdraw. We spoke about that just a moment ago, where you indicated that the banks, in order to be able to deal with the fact of ensuring that the ATMs have the cash in there, that they may decide to increase that amount that you can withdraw.
No, that's not what I said. We increase the limit as to the amount of money we put in the ABM, since more people will be using the ABM. Banks do have a limit on the amount that somebody can withdraw daily. And the reason for that is not because we don't have money and so we don't want you to take out too much money. It is because it's a security measure for you, the customer. And really and truly, at this time, I think people need to be mindful of how much money they have on their person and at their home. These are tough times, so we may see behaviors that we have not seen before. So your money is safe in the bank. If the bank is closed, the ABM is available 24/7. Do not go running and withdraw too much money from the ABM, putting it at your home and then making yourself a target. So I want people to be mindful of that. Yes, the ABM, so the increased limit I referred to, is we put in more money because we know more people will come and withdraw, not you being able to avail of a bigger amount when you withdraw. So I'm hoping that is clear to St. Lucians, but we want you to be mindful. Do not go and withdraw unnecessary money. And hence the reason why the Visa debit cards are important. You go to the store, your money is safe in the bank, you make your payment with your Visa debit card rather than with cash.
Thank you. Great advice there. And someone wants to know about bad loans. Will they benefit from the bank's generosity? Will courtesies be granted to them in terms of fixing the bad loan problem until things get back to normal?
Well, that is a very good question. But it also brings to mind, why did it go bad in the first place? We have a lot of instances where people are in full-time employment, but they are indifferent when it comes to their debt obligations. So I cannot say bad loans, we will wipe these out, because that's not going to happen. What I can say is that you speak to your banks the same way. Even if it's bad now, call the bank and say, I know my debt is bad. Can I come and speak to you, or what can you do for me? But I just want to again reiterate, a moratorium does not mean that debt disappeared. You still owe the bank. Okay?
You wanted to chime in, Primus? Okay. So hand sanitizer there at the ATMs. Somebody wants to know, will hand sanitizers be placed there at all times? Will they be able to get that hand sanitizer?
Okay. So we have to take personal responsibility as human beings for certain things. The bank has hand sanitizers placed when you enter the bank. ABMs are normally an open thing, so it's available 24/7. I'm not aware of replacing hand sanitizers in the bank, because people can damage that. There can be vandalism and so on to take the hand sanitizer, especially now it's a commodity that's in demand. So I do not think we are placing hand sanitizers in the ABMs. What I know we are doing is we are wiping down the keypads and so on. However, we need to take personal responsibility. So if you come to the ABM, have your little hand sanitizer, sanitize your hands, you use your ABM, you can have a clean tissue to touch the keys. You decide what you want to do to protect yourself. When you finish using it, if you didn't have any other means, wash your hands as quickly as you can, sanitize your hands again. But the hand sanitizers are not in the ABMs, they are in the banks when you enter the bank. So today is a Saturday, there is no hand sanitizer in the ABM. And as I said, personal responsibility. Right now, this time will bring out the best of us, and St. Lucians need to be mindful that they need to take personal responsibility for themselves.
But are they being clean, like today is Saturday? Do you have people going in, as you said, wiping down those keypads?
Yes, so we will do that. Actually, a lot of the banks are cleaned on a Saturday. And it's different times. We are aware that people use the ABMs on a Sunday, so we would have made provisions for that to be done. Because
more than once in the day, I would hope.
More than once in the day,
Great.
yes.
The decisions taken to limit the number of customers, small banks, 10, larger banks, 20, knowing our people, there could be an influx of customers coming in, 10 in the balance. What is the arrangement? It would be standing in line outside of the bank, waiting to come in, taking into consideration the conditions, the weather, and things of that nature.
Okay, now that's a very valid point, noting that...
Particularly the elderly, you know, older people, a number of them perhaps may converge on your bank, and you can only accommodate a certain amount. The rest will have to stand in line. some of them can't stand for too long, you know. So are you considering ways and means of mitigating the situation?
Okay. So one of the things that the Bankers Association indicated in our release yesterday is that the elderly, we've made allowance for them to come into the bank between 8 and 9. That is their time. Now, I can tell you, older people, when you go to a bank, they're the first online. These people prepare early, they get up early, they do everything early. So I do not see many of them coming into the bank. But yes, what the bank has done, yes, we said 10 at a time, but in the banking halls, they've made provisions for a lot of them, the distancing where you should stand, so that there isn't close contact, similar to what we are doing right now. In terms of your question, on the outside, what will happen, you will recall yesterday that I said that is also our concern, that they are mixing up outside, and when they come in the bank, they come 10 by 10. So like you spread the germs outside, but you come 10 at a time, bringing it into the bank. So you will also recall that I told the Prime Minister there is where we would need assistance from him. So what we did, we contacted the Commissioner of Police to see how best he can assist us, especially look at Bridge Street, where you have 4 of our members. Top of Bridge Street, you have First National. Next in line, you have FITS. Then you have CIBC First Caribbean, then Bank of St. Lucia. So you can imagine what this will look like if everybody has a line. So we will have to implement new ways of doing things. Either we do a numbering system, so you can go about your business, and when you think it's time for your number, you call. But this thing is fluid, so we don't have all the answers. I just want St. Lucians to be mindful of that. So we will do things, we will improve what we do as the situation unfolds.
We have a question here on passbooks. If it won't be updated, what assurances do we have that payments will be applied to our loans if the payments are being deducted from our salaries?
Okay, that's a two-part thing, because you said we have a question on passbooks.
Yeah, they say that if passbooks won't be updated, what assurances do we have that payments will be applied to our loans if the payments are being deducted from the salary? So I suppose after the salary deduction happens, the individual perhaps wants to go in with the account book. I'm not sure how it's called now, because I haven't used that like forever.
Well, actually, in banking, they no longer exist as far as I'm aware.
That's what I was thinking.
The majority of banks don't have passbook. I'm even more surprised at a passbook for I'm assuming it's their savings account they're referring to. Well, that is why now everything is online. So you can view your account online. There is no need for a passbook anymore. So hence the reason why we want people to sign up for the digital channels. Take that. All the information is in your hands. You can see when your salary has come in. So if you realize you had opted in that you wanted a moratorium, and then the bank took your money, then that's your opportunity to call them and say, hi, I agreed this with you, but I'm seeing something different. So
somehow I think that question is coming from the place where you do have cases where deductions are made from salaries, but then the payments don't go in as early as they should, and sometimes the accounts end up being in arrears. So the employer may deduct, but the payment to the establishment, to your to the bank or whatever the lender hasn't gone through yet. And so sometimes employees believe that since the deduction is shown on their salary slip, that their loan payment is okay. So I think perhaps the individual just wants to know how they now can assure that once the deduction is made, that their account is up to date. But your point stands about being able to go online and you can check the account yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the individual said, someone is saying that the passbooks, I think they're saying for credit unions.
Yes.
But we did say that the credit unions don't form part of the Bankers Association. Okay, I think I'm seeing that we need to get to a break. Is that what it is? No? Okay, very well. We do have another question here. Whether the interest accrued on the credit card will be compounded over the 6 months, and as such increase what is due after the 6 months. In other words, is it only the late payments for credit cards that have been waived?
Okay, so credit cards, as I said, again, if a moratorium is being provided, it is after the moratorium period that you will review what you do next. And I also mentioned the two options. Credit cards are a revolving debt, so they don't have an expiry date like a loan. So again, the financial institution will determine with you, the customer, which option you want. So do you want to extend? Do you want to increase your credit card payment? Because credit cards, the payment on a credit card is determined by you, the customer. What do I mean by that? If you don't use if your balance is zero, there is no payment needed. So if you've used your credit card and you've maxed it, banks allow you to make your minimum payment on your credit card. For some, it's a percentage of your balance. So if it's 3% or 5% of the balance. But credit cards are a little different in the sense that they're what we call a revolving debt. They don't have a end date, whereas a normal loan has a specified expiry date. Credit cards don't have that.
Isn't there a monthly fee attached? I'm not sure.
What fee?
For the credit card payment, even if your balance is zero, isn't the moment that you have access to a credit card that every month you're supposed to, or whatever, yearly or whatever that you're supposed
yes,
to,
so
payment or something?
So credit cards have an annual fee, which I would think most people may have already paid the annual fee already, depending on, it may be, the annual fee may be the anniversary of when you got your card, or it may be a yearly fee at the beginning of the year. It varies by institution. So I cannot really speak to when it would have been charged per institution, but yes, the majority of credit cards have something they call an annual fee they pay for the credit card.
All right, now I'm being told we must take that break. But don't go anywhere, stay with us, we'll be back in a moment.
Personal risk reduction is important. Germs are everywhere, and you can reduce your risk of infection by practicing some basic infection control measures. Taking the stairs, avoid touching the railing. If taking the elevator, ensure you use hand sanitizer immediately after exiting the elevator. Hand sanitizers with 60% or more alcohol are great to use, so have some readily available on your desk for quick use. Have your own personal bottle to carry with you when away from running water and soap. Germs can spread easily and be anywhere. Be sure to wipe down or disinfect desks, telephones, and keyboards. Washing your hands often will reduce the spread of germs, but you must wash them as recommended. Masks and gloves serve a purpose and provide protection when used in the recommended settings and when used correctly. They are not practical for the office or business place and can lead to the further spread of germs when used badly. Use only if you are coughing and or sneezing or taking care of someone who is ill with flu-like symptoms. For more information, call the Ministry of Health and Wellness at 468-5347, 468-5349, or 468-5350.
And thank you so much for staying tuned. We continue the conversation with Ms. Carol Mangal, who is the president of the St. Lucia Bankers Association. Straight to the platform for the questions. We have here, someone wants to know about deductions. And if you have a deduction in place, can you still benefit from the moratorium? But again, I think we alluded to that earlier, but you can expound.
Okay, so I'm assuming the person means a deduction in terms of a salary. Their salary go to an account and there is a deduction to pay the loan. Well, it depends on your circumstance. Again, if you're still in full employment, money will be coming to allow that deduction to be processed. If there is no money coming in, then the deduction cannot be processed.
And so you can have that conversation with your respective banks, because in this time you may very well end up, if you have a household of say 4 or 5 people, and this one person, probably there's only one person in the household who now has a job, and so perhaps although they have that deduction, they may not be able to afford paying that loan at this time because the household's income has been diminished, because they're now the sole breadwinner in the house. And so again, contacting your bank and having that conversation would be something that's necessary.
And again, the main thing is the bankers have already agreed. They have made that provision for you. So the power is in your hands. You contact the bank and say, I want to avail of the moratorium or I do not want. It is a personal decision.
Okay, so now when you're making that decision, because, you know, sometimes the temptation is there. As you indicated, somebody may not have lost their job, and so they're still employed for now, and they may feel, well, if I don't have to pay that, I might as well just don't bother. And they may decide on calling up and saying, listen, I want to be able to participate in this moratorium. I don't want to have to pay you for the next 3 months or 6 months, whatever it is that the bank is offering. What would be your professional advice to that individual? Is it a good thing to decide to take it, or can it work against you down the line?
Okay. I would say do today what you are able to do. So if you are able to make your payment, make it. If you cannot, there is a system in place to allow for that. But do not delay things unnecessarily. As I said earlier, you still owe the bank. So why delay it when you can pay it?
In the event of, say, you're still employed, but because of the situation economically, the economic impact as a result of COVID-19, that your company decided there would be a reduce in salary, and you have a loan with the bank, would you consider, like, the withdrawal that is made, how do you say it, that
the amount that is
been paid every month, would you consider
a reduction of the amount instead of simply opting for the waiver?
Okay, so again, there can be a variation. If you are underemployed to a certain extent, you can call it that, where you're making less money, your income, your employer has kept you on board, but they have, in light of what is happening, reduced your income. It means the situation you were in when you applied for the loan has changed. So you then, if you decide, I can make a portion of my payment, if I'm right, I'm assuming that's what you're asking.
Yes.
I can make a portion of my payment now, and you feel you're comfortable doing that, you contact your bank. Something is better than nothing. So the decision is left up to you.
Okay, we have another question coming in here. What about transaction fees for wire transfer, interbank and bank-to-bank transfers, standing orders to insurances and other institutions? Can arrangements be made to waive these?
I think that's probably one of the things all the banks will look at. The money is made on those things are not a lot. So it may not be something big to give, but I cannot speak for individual banks, but it's something, again, to work with your bank. Find out what they have in place. That is what I will say. But what I know for sure they have put in place is the bigger thing is what they have looked at, the loan payments. These are much larger compared to a fee you may have been charged for a standing order. Now the other thing is, will you still be able to service that standing order? If the standing order is not serviced, then there is no fee. if there was a fee before, because it's not being processed.
Yeah, somebody wants to know about the older persons. They don't know how to go online. So I suppose you probably want to have you to, in terms of being able now to have contact with the bank and how the bank is perhaps will facilitate those who are not able to.
Well,
I'm not sure.
as I mentioned earlier,
Apart from them having to come in.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you'd be surprised. I think every old person now knows how to use their cell phone. And online banking is accessed via the cell phone. So we have people in our banks who we call digital specialists, who show people how to use their phones in terms of how to access the digital platforms on their phones. So we can work with the older people who at this time want to be able to do that. A lot of old people are not inclined to do that. They are quite happy. This is their pastime, coming into the bank to get their monies. They meet their contemporaries, they sit next to each other. The bank has sitting arrangements for them. So they're quite happy with that. So this person may be thinking that that is really a need. It may not necessarily be so, based on the information we have from our customer base.
And let's talk about the differently abled. I know that you're saying that we also have this the 8 to 9 period as well that they allowed in along with the senior citizens. Some they may need special provisions. Those who may be blind, those who may be deaf. So I know that you're also working on a reduced staff level as well during those operating hours. So any special consideration being given there for the disabled beside just the time that they allowed to come in?
I'm not sure if I fully understand that question, but maybe you can expound on it by telling me what considerations you are thinking of.
So, okay, I'm sure for the blind persons, for example, they perhaps need to come in with someone who will be able to assist them, or if that passes the 10-person limit, because that person may be, coming in at number 10, but they need to bring in somebody with them to accompany them. People who are on wheelchairs as well would need that, and maybe even for the blind, maybe they need to have the teller who would perhaps be able to guide them, what it is their needs are, and so forth.
Well, in our society, a lot of these people have got people who take care of their needs. So if you're asking, and I think that maybe one of the things you're asking, if somebody in a wheelchair comes in, how do you count them? Obviously, the person who comes, you will count them as a one person because they've come to do one transaction, put it as this. We wouldn't say the person who's pushing you stay outside, no. But again, in our society, a lot of these people have people who assist them. Some of them may not necessarily have accounts, but they have people who assist them. So whatever is needed, the banks will work with them.
For someone who may have secured a loan from a lending financial institution to embark on a business venture and may have started off, but because of the impending situation, because of the situation of COVID-19, decided I'm no longer interested in going on with this venture, business venture. What happens then? Okay,
that question has two facets. Is it a case where they secured a loan? Because securing a loan may mean,
but they
have they drawn down on the loan, right, or have they not? They got their loan approved. But
yes, but they already started off the business. They've gotten.
Give us all the scenarios.
Okay,
right.
Okay. So let us say you came for a mortgage. Let us put it in something that a lot of people would understand. But you've not drawn down your mortgage. You've signed your documents at the lawyers and so on. Maybe you may leave it at that stage, especially if you were going to be building a house. Should construction continue? That may be a decision for you and your bank to determine, because there are a lot of other factors that will come to place. Will the labor force be available to construct that house for you? Will the raw materials be available for the construction to take place? So there are a lot of things you need to look at. So I would say, for a loan like that, which you have not drawn down, where you've not accessed the funds, leave it as is for now. If there is one where you've partially drawn the funds, I would say if you're not in an industry that is essential at this point in time, I would say do not draw down anymore. Wait, let us see what happens. The more you draw down, the more you are now in debt. If you've drawn down the full funds, contact your bank and see what can be done to assist you, especially if the industry you're in is impacted from the get-go.
And so we had this discussion off air a moment ago. For the banks, this is certainly, it's magnanimous of them. I know some people might say, what? No, don't use that word. But it is something that the bank has certainly brought comfort to a lot of St. Lucians at this time. But the survivability of the banks, how are the banks going to sustain themselves? Because the banks employ people too. And if its business has been affected to the degree that it is not bringing in the amounts of money that it normally would, its ability to continue to employ those employees, that in itself is a bit diminished. So while it is doing something very good for the country, but I know that it does have implications for how the banks will be able to survive.
Okay, that is a very good question, and it would impact people like me as a banker. For now, there's a lot of uncertainty. We do not know what the future holds, but I am certain that the banks, as much as possible, will try to keep all their employees employed at this point in time. Whether they make individual decisions, that would be up to the financial institution based on how much it is impacted. I cannot say banks will be laying off staff. I'm not in a position to say that. What I can say, let us prepare for the worst and hope for the best at this point in time.
Okay. All right, just going back to the platform here, lots of people asking about, again, the credit unions, but that's okay. Yes, we will be having a representative from the credit union. That will be happening next week for you, as well as the utility companies that will be coming as well very early in the week. So that's, again, to complement what the Bankers Association has done for St. Lucians. People are eager to find out what sort of relief that they can get. We want to thank you so much, the President for the St. Lucia Bankers Association, for coming through. Any parting words?
I want to say to St. Lucians, banks care about you. Without our customers, we will not exist. So we are in it with you. We want the best for you, but we also want you to take personal responsibility for some of the decisions you will make. Now, it's certainly not the time to buy unnecessary things. I'm not saying that we do not need to buy essential items, but now certainly is not the time to make decisions that in the future may have proved that they were against our better judgment.
You want to hold on to as much cash as possible.
Yes. So do not go on frivolous spend. Try to avoid panic buying as much as possible. That does not mean you do not buy what is necessary, but hold on to your cash resources as much as possible. You may need them more in the future if this thing does not blow over early.
As soon as possible. Okay, before I let you go, we do have an important question that has just come in. Thank you, Jean, for that. What about investment banks like First Citizens? Will they be cutting interest rates? I don't know if it's First Citizens part and parcel of the
First
association.
Citizens is a member of the Bankers Association. When the client asks, will they be cutting rate, because it's an investment bank, what exactly do they mean? Rates on lendings or rates on deposit? Which one is it?
Okay, so Jean, if you can quickly type that in. Are you the interest rates on what exactly is it? So hopefully she can chime in on that to make it a little bit more explicit. but maybe you can address the two different scenarios if you can.
Okay. Well, the principal at the First Citizens Investment Company is a gentleman called Omar Birchsmith. So maybe it would be good if you invite him. Since it's a different facility in terms that it's not a commercial bank. However, they would determine if they reduce rates, because it's a separate entity, as I said, on deposits as well as on the lendings. So I cannot speak to them, but if that person who asked the question has an investment with that institution, now is the time to contact them to ascertain what's happening with the investment.
And that's the, so she says rates on accounts and fixed deposits.
Okay, so fixed deposits are fixed as the name suggests. So it has a fixed amount, a fixed interest rate, and a fixed expiry date. Banks do not, or institutions, financial institutions do not change the rate on the fixed deposit during the fixed period. When it matures would be the opportunity if the rates were to change. So again, that person would need to contact the institution to ascertain what is happening. So if theirs is due for renewal, at that point the company will determine whether the rates have gone down. I don't really see it increasing, to be realistic, or whether it remains the same.
Right, wonderful. Thank you so much. It has been a very edifying time, you being here. We do hope that it's not the last time we'll be seeing you. Something tells me that you'll be back soon enough. And I want to say thank you so much to our viewers there. Thank you for all of your questions. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Personal risk reduction is important. Germs are everywhere, and you can reduce your risk of infection by practicing some basic infection control measures. Taking the stairs, avoid touching the railing. If taking the elevator, ensure you use hand sanitizer immediately after exiting the elevator. Hand sanitizers with 60% or more alcohol are great to use, so have some readily available on your desk for quick use. Have your own personal bottle to carry with you when away from running water and soap. Germs can spread easily and be anywhere. Be sure to wipe down or disinfect desks, telephones, and keyboards. Washing your hands often will reduce the spread of germs, but you must wash them as recommended.